Hazard communication, chemical and physical hazards. Objectives: understand chemical and physical hazards of substances. Physical hazard definitions. A combustible liquid. At above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, this will produce vapors that will burn. An example would be motor oil. A flammable liquid. Below 100 degrees Fahrenheit, this produces vapors that will burn. An example is alcohol. Compressed gas. A gas under pressure that will release violent energy if its container is ruptured. An example would be nitrogen. An explosive. This will explode when subjected to sudden shock, pressure, or high temperature. An example would be TNT. An organic peroxide or peroxide former. These can produce an explosive mixture. An oxidizer. These release oxygen that allow fires to start easily or to burn with greater intensity. An example would be hydrogen peroxide. A pyrophoric. This will ignite spontaneously in normal air. Unstable or reactive. By itself or with other chemicals, it can produce hazardous reactions if exposed to sudden shock, pressure, or temperature. An example would be nitroglycerin. Water reactive. When it contacts water, a water reactive produces gases that are flammable or a health hazard. An example would be metallic sodium. Chemical hazard definitions. A carcinogen. These are substances that cause cancer, such as benzene. A corrosive. These cause irreversible damage to the skin, eyes, or the respiratory tract at the site of contact. These are typically called acids and bases. Irritant. These can cause reversible inflammatory effect on the skin or the respiratory tract. This includes most industrial and household solvents. A toxic chemical. Overexposure to small amounts of these types of chemicals can lead to serious injury or death. One example is sodium fluoride. Highly toxic. Overexposure to very small amounts of these types of chemicals can lead to serious injury or death. One example is strychnine. A sensitizer. These cause allergic reaction after repeated exposure. One example would be epoxy glues. Aesthetics. These cause loss of sensation, such as halothane or procaine. Asphyxiants. These cause an inability to breathe, such as hydrogen cyanide or hydrogen sulfide. Systemic poisons. These are toxic substances that spread throughout the body to different organ systems. A couple of examples are mercury and lead. Biohazards. Biological material that could potentially cause harm to humans. Examples would be certain bacteria and viruses and other parasites. Factors affecting exposure. There are several factors that affect exposure to an individual. Toxic substances. Of course, the greater the toxicity, the greater the effect. The route of an exposure has an effect as well. Inhalation, which is simply breathing. Absorption, the chemical would be absorbed through the skin. Ingestion, which is eating or drinking the substance, or injection, which is the puncturing of the skin. Another factor is the chemical dose, which is essentially the amount of the chemical that someone has been exposed to. Individual factors or sensitivity, such as underlying medical conditions, and then the interaction with other chemicals, such as a reaction with a non-compatible chemical. Short and long-term effects. There are basically two types: acute effects, which are fast, immediate, and typically there is a high concentration that is delivered to the individual, and then a chronic effect. This method takes years before any symptoms appear, and it usually occurs with small doses over a long period of time that accumulate to form a large dose. Quiz 1. A flammable liquid is below 100 degrees Fahrenheit and produces vapors that will burn. A. True. B. False. 2. A pyrophoric will ignite spontaneously in normal air. A. True. B. False. 3. A carcinogen can cause cancer. A. True. B. False. 4. The chemical dose is the amount of the chemical that someone is exposed. A. True. B. False. 5. Acute effects occur over several years. A. True. B. False.